The 38-year-old pediatric nurse had departed from Denver, Colorado, along with her son, Jake Mitchell, on August 10, 2023, for a 10-day trip to Masai Mara National Park. According to records from Adventure Kenya Safari's tourism agency, Sarah had booked the package 6 months earlier, paying $8,500 for the excursion that included accommodation, meals, and specialized guides. Company documentation indicates she had mentioned during booking that the trip was a gift for her son after a difficult period for the family. According to colleagues at Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital, where Sarah had worked for 8 years, she had requested 2 weeks of vacation in May 2023, explaining that she intended to take an important trip with her son. The pediatric department supervisor, Nurse Linda Rodriguez, later declared to authorities that Sarah seemed excited about the travel plans and had shown photographs of wild animals she hoped to see during the safari. The trip itinerary included flights from Denver to Nairobi, with a stopover in Amsterdam, followed by ground transportation to the Masai Mara region. Airport records confirm that mother and son boarded KL1667 KLM flight on August 10th at 2:35 p.m., arriving at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi the following morning, local time. Samuel Kipchoge, a guide with Adventure Kenya Safaris for 15 years, was assigned to accompany the group of 8 tourists during the expedition. In testimony provided to Kenyan authorities, Kipchoge described Sarah as an educated person interested in wildlife, who asked many questions about the animals, and seemed determined to provide a positive experience for her son. The guide reported that Sarah had mentioned it was the first major trip she had taken with Jake since becoming widowed. The group was staying at Mara Bush Camp, a facility with 12 luxury tents located approximately 40 kilometers from the town of Narok. According to camp manager David Mutua, Sarah and her son occupied tent number 7, situated in the second row of the complex. Mutua informed authorities that Sarah had appeared satisfied with the accommodations and had praised the quality of meals served at the location. During the first 4 days of the expedition, the group participated in morning and evening safaris, observing lions, elephants, zebras, and other animals typical of the region. Margaret Foster, a 52-year-old British tourist who was part of the same group, declared that Sarah seemed to be enjoying herself and constantly photographed the animals and her son. Foster added that Sarah had mentioned that Jake appeared happier during the trip. Robert Chen, a 45-year-old businessman from San Francisco who also was part of the group, confirmed that Sarah actively participated in scheduled activities and seemed comfortable in the environment. Jen reported that she'd commented during a meal that the trip was exceeding her expectations and that Jake was loving the experience. On the night of August 14th, the evening before the disappearance, the group had returned to camp around 6:30 p.m. after an evening safari. Dinner was served at 7:30 p.m. in the camp's common area, and Sarah was seen conversing with other guests until approximately 9:15 p.m. The last confirmed record of her presence was made by James Kiprotich, reception staff member, who saw her heading to the tent accompanied by her son at 9:45 p.m. Jake Mitchell, in testimony given in the presence of a child psychologist and a representative from the American consulate, reported that his mother had helped him prepare for sleep and had spent some time writing in a notebook she always carried. The boy stated that he fell asleep around 10:30 p.m. and that his mother was still awake at that time. The discovery of the disappearance occurred at 6:15 a.m. the following morning, when Jake woke up and noticed that his mother's sleeping bag was empty. According to his account, he initially thought she had gone out to use the restroom facilities, but after waiting 15 minutes, he became worried and left the tent to look for her. Samuel Kipchoge was the first adult to be alerted about Sarah's absence. At 6:25 a.m., the guide immediately checked the restroom facilities, dining area, and nearby surroundings of the tent before alerting camp management. David Mutua activated all available staff members to conduct an initial search within the camp boundaries. The Kenya National Police were notified at 7:45 a.m. via radio communicator, as the area does not have reliable cellular phone coverage. The first police team arrived at the location at 10:30 a.m., led by Inspector Joseph Mena from the Narok station. Mena immediately began collecting statements and examining the tent where Sarah had slept. Initial examination of tent number 7 revealed that Sarah's personal belongings remained intact. Her passport, money, medications, and photographic equipment were stored in a travel suitcase that showed no signs of tampering. The clothes she had worn the previous day were found folded on a chair. The notebook where she used to write was located on the bedside table, with the last entry dated August 14th. Initial forensic examination identified no signs of struggle or disturbance inside the tent. The entrance zippers were closed from the inside, but investigators determined it would be possible for someone to exit the tent and close the zipper externally. No suspicious footprints were found in the soil around the accommodation, due to the rocky composition of the terrain in that specific area of the camp. The Kenya Wildlife Service was contacted to investigate the possibility of wild animal involvement in the disappearance. Experienced rangers examined the area searching for traces of large cats, hyenas, or elephants, but found no evidence of suspicious animal activity in the vicinity of the tent during the night. Detective Grace Mwangi, from the Criminal Investigation Division in Nairobi, took over the case on August 17th, following a request from American consular authorities. Mwangi has 15 years of experience in disappearance investigations and had previously worked on cases involving foreign tourists in national parks. During the second phase of the investigation, all Mara Bush Camp employees were interrogated individually. The camp employed 23 people, including guides, cooks, night security guards, and cleaning staff. 2 night guards were on duty the night of the disappearance, Peter Rotich and Daniel Sankale, both employees for more than 3 years. Rotich declared that he had made his usual rounds at 11 p.m., 1:30 a.m., and 4:30 a.m. without observing anything abnormal. Sankale confirmed that he remained in the central area of the camp throughout the night, monitoring possible wild animal movements. Both guards stated they had not heard screams, calls for help, or any unusual noise during the nighttime period. The investigation expanded to include verification of communication records. The camp has a satellite phone for emergencies, but there was no record of calls made or received on the night of the disappearance. The tourism company confirmed that Sarah had not made contact with their facilities in Nairobi since arriving at the camp. Sarah's family members in Denver were contacted by American police in coordination with Kenyan authorities. Linda Mitchell, Sarah's sister, informed that she had spoken with her sister-in-law by phone 2 days before the disappearance, and that she seemed well and excited about the trip. Linda added that Sarah had not mentioned any concerns or problems during their last communications. The American consulate in Nairobi assigned Consular Officer Mark Thompson to follow the case and provide assistance to Jake Mitchell. Thompson organized temporary accommodation for the boy in Nairobi while searches continued and arranged specialized psychological support. Search operations intensified from the 3rd day, with involvement from the Kenya Wildlife Service, which made helicopters and specialized tracking teams available. The search area initially covered a 5-kilometer radius around the camp, expanding progressively as days passed without results. Tracking dogs were brought from Nairobi to assist in ground searches. The animals were able to detect Sarah's trail on a path heading east from the camp, but the trail disappeared after approximately 800 meters in a rocky terrain area near a seasonal creek. Analysis of meteorological records indicated that the night of August 14th to 15th had been clear, with a minimum temperature of 16 degrees Celsius and no precipitation. The moon was in a waxing phase, providing moderate natural illumination. These conditions would have allowed nighttime movement without significant technical difficulties. After 2 weeks of intensive searches involving more than 50 people and estimated costs of $75,000, Kenyan authorities suspended active rescue operations. The case was reclassified as an ongoing disappearance investigation, remaining open for new evidence or information. Jake Mitchell returned to the United States on August 29th, accompanied by his aunt Linda Mitchell and Consular Officer Thompson. The boy underwent comprehensive psychological evaluation and began treatment to process the trauma of his mother's disappearance. The case attracted international media attention, with reports published in American and Kenyan newspapers. Adventure Kenya Safaris cooperated fully with the investigation and implemented additional security protocols in their subsequent operations. 1 year after the disappearance, the investigation remains officially open, but without significant developments. Detective Mwangi maintains regular contact with American authorities and continues receiving occasional information from rangers and local communities in the Masai Mara region. Detective Grace Mwangi arrived at Mara Bush Camp at 8:30 a.m. on August 16th, accompanied by a team of 4 investigators from the Criminal Investigation Division. Mwangi immediately established a command center in the camp's main lodge and began conducting formal interviews with all witnesses. Her first priority was re-interviewing Jake Mitchell in the presence of a child psychologist and American consular representative Mark Thompson. Jake's second testimony, recorded on August 16th, provided additional details about the final hours before his mother's disappearance. The boy recalled that Sarah had seemed unusually quiet during dinner on August 14th and had spent considerable time looking at photographs on her camera. According to Jake, his mother had mentioned feeling tired and had suggested they return to their tent earlier than usual that evening. The forensic team conducted a thorough examination of tent number 7, using luminol testing to detect any traces of blood or other bodily fluids. The results were negative throughout the interior and immediate exterior of the accommodation. Fingerprint analysis revealed only prints belonging to Sarah, Jake, and camp cleaning staff member Mary Wanjiku, who had serviced the tent that morning. Samuel Kipchoge, the safari guide, was interviewed for a second time on August 16th. During this extended session, Kipchoge revealed that Sarah had asked several questions about local wildlife behavior during their August 14th evening safari. Specifically, she had inquired about nocturnal animal movements and whether tourists had ever encountered dangerous situations at night. Kipchoge stated he had assured her that the camp's security measures were adequate and that serious incidents involving tourists were extremely rare. Margaret Foster, the British tourist, provided a detailed account of her interactions with Sarah during their final evening together. Foster recalled that Sarah had seemed contemplative during dinner and had mentioned missing her late husband, David. According to Foster's statement, Sarah had expressed gratitude for the trip, but had also commented that certain moments made her feel David's absence more acutely. Robert Chen, the businessman from San Francisco, corroborated Foster's observations about Sarah's mood on August 14th. Chen added that Sarah had asked him about his travel insurance coverage and had mentioned concerns about what would happen to Jake if something occurred to her during the trip. Chen stated that he had dismissed these comments as normal parental anxiety, rather than indicators of specific danger. The camp's night security guards, Peter Rodich and Daniel Sankale, underwent polygraph testing on August 17th. Both men passed the examinations without indicating deception. Rodich's detailed log showed his patrol routes and timing, which were consistent with camp protocols established over several years. Sankale's position at the central monitoring post was confirmed by other staff members who had interacted with him during the night shift. David Mutua, the camp manager, provided investigators with complete employment records for all staff members. Background checks revealed that all employees had clean criminal records and had undergone security screening before hiring. 3 staff members were recent hires within the past 6 months, but all had verifiable references from previous employers in the tourism industry. The Kenya Wildlife Service deployed a helicopter on August 17th to conduct aerial reconnaissance of the area surrounding Mara Bush Camp. The aircraft covered a 25-kilometer radius, focusing on riverbanks, rocky outcroppings, and dense vegetation where a person might become trapped or hidden. Pilots reported no visual signs of human presence or disturbance in the landscape. Ground search teams organized into 5 groups of 8 people each, including park rangers, police officers, and volunteer guides from other safari companies. Each team was assigned a specific sector, radiating outward from the camp. The searches covered terrain ranging from open grassland to acacia forests and seasonal wetlands. Communication was maintained through radio contact every 30 minutes. Dr. Patricia Muthoni, a forensic psychologist from the University of Nairobi, interviewed Jake Mitchell on August 18th to assess his psychological state and gather any additional memories that might assist the investigation. Dr. Muthoni determined that Jake was experiencing acute stress reaction, but was mentally competent to provide testimony. The session revealed that Jake had occasionally heard his mother moving around their tent during previous nights of the trip, but had not awakened fully on August 14th. The investigation expanded to include Sarah's financial records and recent communications. Bank statements obtained through international cooperation showed no unusual transactions or cash withdrawals prior to the trip. Sarah's cellular phone records indicated her last communication was a text message sent to her sister Linda on August 13th, stating that she and Jake were having a wonderful time and would call when they returned to Denver. Adventure Kenya Safaris provided complete documentation of their safety protocols and incident history. Company records showed that no tourist had disappeared from their supervised expeditions in over 12 years of operation. The last serious incident involving their clients had occurred in 2018, when a tourist suffered a broken leg during a walking safari and required helicopter evacuation. Local Maasai community leaders were consulted regarding any unusual activities or sightings in the area during the relevant time period. Elder Joseph Sankale, Daniel Sankale's uncle, and a respected community leader, reported that herders had not observed any strangers or vehicles in the region during the night of August 14th to 15th. The Maasai have traditional knowledge of animal and human movement patterns that often proves valuable in search operations. The investigation team examined Sarah's personal belongings in greater detail on August 19th. Her camera contained 247 photographs from the safari, with the last image time-stamped at 6:42 p.m. on August 14th, showing Jake observing a group of zebras. Her journal contained daily entries describing their experiences, with increasingly positive observations about Jake's mood and behavior during the trip. The final journal entry, written on August 14th, read, "Jake laughed today when the baby elephant sprayed water near our vehicle. It's the first time I've heard him laugh like that since David passed. I think this trip is helping both of us heal. Tomorrow we're supposed to see lions early in the morning. Jake is so excited he can barely sleep. I feel David's presence here somehow, like he's watching over us and approving of this adventure." Meteorological data for August 15th confirmed clear skies and good visibility throughout the night. The Kenya Meteorological Department provided detailed information showing wind patterns, temperature variations, and humidity levels that would have affected tracking conditions. The absence of rain for 3 days prior to the disappearance meant that ground conditions were optimal for preserving footprints and other physical evidence. The search operation faced its first major challenge on August 20th, when heavy rainfall began in the region. The precipitation compromised potential evidence and made ground searches more difficult. Helicopter operations were suspended for 2 days due to poor visibility and dangerous flying conditions. Ground teams continued their efforts, but with reduced effectiveness. Mark Thompson from the American consulate maintained daily communication with Sarah's family in Denver and coordinated with the State Department regarding the investigation. Linda Mitchell arrived in Nairobi on August 21st to provide support for Jake and to assist with identification procedures if needed. She brought additional photographs of Sarah and personal items that might aid in the search. The investigation received its first potential lead on August 22nd, when a truck driver reported seeing a woman walking alone on the main road between Narok and the camp area at approximately 3 a.m. on August 15th. Driver Michael Rotich stated that he had slowed down to offer assistance, but the woman had moved away from the road and disappeared into the bush. However, Rotich admitted he had been driving for many hours and could not be certain about the identification. Detective Mwangi organized a reconstruction of the sighting report on August 23rd. The location described by the truck driver was approximately 8 kilometers from Mara Bush Camp, which would represent a significant distance for someone to travel on foot during the night. The area was searched extensively, but no physical evidence was discovered to support the sighting. Dr. James Kinyua, a wildlife behavior specialist from the Kenya Wildlife Service, provided analysis regarding the possibility of animal involvement in Sarah's disappearance. Dr. Kinyua explained that while large predators do occasionally come near tourist facilities, attacks on humans in well-managed camps are extremely rare. He noted that lions and leopards typically avoid areas with human activity and artificial lighting. The psychological impact on Jake Mitchell became a growing concern as the search entered its second week. Dr. Muthoni recommended that the boy be relocated to a more stable environment while maintaining hope for his mother's recovery. Arrangements were made for Jake to stay at the American Embassy guest house in Nairobi, where he could receive appropriate care and counseling. Camp employee interviews revealed minor inconsistencies in some staff members' accounts of their activities on August 14th and 15th. Cook assistant Peter Kamani initially stated he had finished kitchen duties at 10 p.m., but later revised his statement to 10:30 p.m. after reviewing the evening's meal service schedule. These discrepancies were investigated thoroughly, but determined to be normal variations in memory, rather than indicators of deception. The search operation expanded to include examination of abandoned vehicles and structures within a 50-kilometer radius of the camp. Rangers checked old research stations, unused park facilities, and seasonal herder camps that might provide shelter or concealment. This phase of the search required coordination with multiple park services and local administrative authorities. On August 25th, search dogs were brought to the location where the truck driver claimed to have seen a woman walking. The canines detected human scent traces on the roadway, but were unable to establish a clear trail leading away from the area. The scent evidence was compromised by vehicle traffic and weather conditions during the intervening days. Adventure Kenya Safaris implemented enhanced security measures at all their facilities following Sarah's disappearance. These changes included additional night patrols, improved lighting systems, and mandatory buddy system protocols for guests leaving their accommodations after dark. The company also began providing emergency communication devices to all clients. The investigation received international attention when the case was featured on American television news programs. The coverage generated several tips from viewers who claimed to have information about Sarah or similar cases in East Africa. Each lead was investigated thoroughly, but none provided substantive evidence relevant to the disappearance. Local government officials expressed concern about the potential impact of the case on Kenya's tourism industry. Regional Commissioner Sarah Korere held a press conference on August 28th to assure international visitors that the incident was isolated and that comprehensive safety measures were in place throughout the country's national parks and game reserves. The formal search operation was scaled back on August 30th after 2 weeks of intensive efforts involving over 200 personnel. However, park rangers and local communities were instructed to remain alert for any signs of Sarah Mitchell and to report immediately any discoveries or sightings. Missing person flyers with Sarah's photograph and description were distributed throughout the region. Jake Mitchell's return to the United States was arranged for August 31st, accompanied by his Aunt Linda and Consular Officer Thompson. Before departing Kenya, Jake visited the Search Command Center to thank the investigators and volunteers who had worked to find his mother. Detective Mwangi assured the boy that the investigation would continue and that any new developments would be communicated immediately to his family. The case file remained active with the Kenya National Police, classified as a missing person investigation with suspicious circumstances. Detective Mwangi continued to receive periodic reports from field officers and maintained contact with international law enforcement agencies regarding potential connections to other unsolved cases involving missing tourists in East Africa. Jake Mitchell, now 13 years old, had been living with his Aunt Linda in Denver since September 2023. The boy attended Jefferson Middle School and received weekly counseling sessions with Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a trauma specialist who worked extensively with children who had lost parents. According to school counselor Patricia Williams, Jake maintained good academic performance, but exhibited signs of persistent anxiety and often spoke about returning to Kenya to continue searching for his mother. Linda Mitchell reported to authorities that Jake had developed an obsessive interest in following his mother's case through online forums and social media groups dedicated to missing persons in Africa. She discovered that he had been in regular email contact with Samuel Kipchoge, the safari guide, who continued to provide updates about ongoing unofficial search efforts in the Masai Mara region. On July 15, 2024, Samuel Kipchoge contacted Detective Grace Mwangi with information that would prove crucial to the investigation. Kipchoge reported that park rangers had been documenting unusual behavior among local wildlife, specifically spotted hyenas and honey badgers, in an area approximately 15 kilometers northeast of the Mara Bush Camp. Senior Ranger David Olakina of the Kenya Wildlife Service had been tracking these behavioral anomalies since early June 2024. According to Olakina's field reports, the animals were consistently carrying objects that appeared to be of human origin through the Mara River Valley. The ranger initially dismissed these observations as normal scavenging behavior until the pattern became too frequent and organized to ignore. Ranger Olakina's detailed logs showed that the unusual activity occurred primarily during early morning hours, between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. The animals were observed carrying fabric pieces, small metal objects, and what appeared to be synthetic materials. Most significantly, the items were being transported in a specific direction toward a remote area of the reserve that was rarely visited by tourists or researchers. Detective Mwangi traveled to the Masai Mara on July 20, 2024, to investigate these reports personally. She was accompanied by Dr. James Kinyua, the wildlife behavior specialist who had consulted on the original investigation, and forensic technician Moses Wekesa. The team established a temporary observation post near the area where the animal activity had been documented. During 3 days of surveillance, the investigation team observed spotted hyenas carrying fabric fragments that appeared consistent with camping equipment or clothing materials. Dr. Kinyua noted that this behavior was highly unusual, as these animals typically consume organic materials immediately rather than transporting them over significant distances. The terrain in the area of interest presented significant challenges for investigation. The region consisted of rocky outcroppings interspersed with dense acacia thickets and seasonal watercourses. Access required specialized equipment and experienced guides familiar with the hazardous landscape. The remoteness of the location also explained why it had not been thoroughly searched during the original investigation. On July 23, 2024, the team discovered a partially concealed ravine approximately 2 kilometers from where the animal activity had been observed. The depression was hidden by overhanging vegetation and would not be visible from aerial reconnaissance. Initial examination of the site revealed scattered debris including fabric pieces, plastic fragments, and corroded metal objects. Dr. Kinyua's analysis of the site suggested that animals had been visiting this location regularly for an extended period. The distribution of materials indicated that larger items had been broken down and dispersed by scavenging activity over many months. Soil samples were collected for laboratory analysis to determine if human remains might be present in the area. The investigation expanded to include ground-penetrating radar equipment, which was transported to the site on July 25th. The sophisticated scanning revealed anomalies in the soil composition approximately 1.5 meters below the surface of the ravine. The patterns were consistent with disturbed earth and organic decomposition, suggesting that something substantial had been buried in the location. Samuel Kipchoge, who had been following the investigation developments, provided additional context about the area where the discovery was made. According to his knowledge of the region, the ravine was located along traditional animal migration routes, but was avoided by most safari operators due to difficult vehicle access and minimal wildlife viewing opportunities. The Kenya National Police obtained a court order on July 28th to begin excavation of the site. The operation required coordination between multiple agencies including the Kenya Wildlife Service, the National Museums of Kenya, and forensic specialists from the Government Chemist Department. Dr. Mercy Mugo, a forensic anthropologist, was brought in to oversee the careful examination of any human remains. Excavation began on July 30th under strict archaeological protocols to preserve any evidence that might be recovered. The team worked slowly and methodically, documenting every item discovered and maintaining precise records of the location and depth of each finding. Weather conditions were favorable, with clear skies and minimal wind that could disturb the site. The first significant discovery occurred on August 2nd, when excavators uncovered fragments of camping equipment including pieces of a sleeping bag and tent material. The fabrics showed extensive damage from animal activity and environmental exposure, but enough material remained for potential identification and testing. On August 4th, the excavation team discovered human skeletal remains at a depth of approximately 1.8 meters. Dr. Mugo immediately took control of the recovery process, carefully exposing and documenting each bone before removal. The remains were in a state of advanced decomposition, consistent with burial, for approximately 1 year in the local environmental conditions. Initial examination of the skeletal remains indicated they belonged to an adult female of medium build, consistent with Sarah Mitchell's physical description. The skull showed no obvious signs of trauma, but complete analysis would require laboratory examination with specialized equipment. Several pieces of jewelry were recovered with the remains, including a gold wedding ring and a silver necklace. Jake Mitchell was notified of the discovery through proper channels involving the American consulate and his family's attorney. Linda Mitchell requested that DNA testing be expedited to confirm the identity of the remains, while also arranging for psychological support for Jake as he processed this development in his mother's case. The excavation also revealed evidence suggesting that the burial had been hasty and poorly concealed. The depth was insufficient for long-term concealment, and the location was in an area where animal scavenging was likely to occur. Dr. Mugo concluded that whoever had buried the remains lacked experience in concealing evidence effectively. Among the personal effects recovered from the site was a damaged camera that appeared consistent with the equipment Sarah had been carrying during the safari. The camera's memory card was severely corroded, but forensic specialists hoped that data recovery might be possible using advanced techniques available at specialized laboratories. Detective Mwangi's investigation revealed that the burial site was accessible by four-wheel drive vehicle, using a little-known maintenance road that connected to the main park infrastructure. This access route was typically used only by park rangers and researchers, suggesting that whoever had transported the remains to this location had detailed knowledge of the area. The investigation team discovered tire tracks in a hardpan area approximately 500 meters from the burial site. The tracks were old and partially obscured by weather, but casting specialists were able to create impressions that might allow for future comparison with suspect vehicles. The tire pattern appeared consistent with heavy-duty truck tires rather than typical safari vehicle equipment. Dr. Kinyua's analysis of the animal behavior patterns provided additional insights into the timeline of the burial. Based on scavenging activity and the distribution of materials, he estimated that the site had been disturbed by wildlife for approximately 8 to 10 months. This suggested that the burial had occurred several months after Sarah's initial disappearance. The discovery prompted a complete review of the original investigation files and interviews with all personnel who had been involved in the case. Detective Mwangi identified several areas where the investigation could be expanded, including more thorough background checks on safari company employees and examination of vehicle records for the period following Sarah's disappearance. Samuel Kipchoge provided additional information about staff changes at various safari companies in the months following Sarah's disappearance. 3 employees from Adventure Kenya Safaris had left their positions between October 2023 and January 2024, which was unusual for an industry where experienced guides typically maintained long-term employment relationships. The investigation revealed that one former Adventure Kenya Safaris employee, mechanic Francis Kiprotich, had been dismissed in November 2023 for unauthorized use of company vehicles. Kiprotich had access to Park Service roads and would have possessed the knowledge necessary to reach the remote burial location. His current whereabouts were unknown, as he had not maintained contact with former colleagues. Laboratory analysis of soil samples from the burial site revealed traces of accelerants that might have been used in an attempt to speed decomposition. The chemical signatures were consistent with cleaning solvents or fuel additives that would be commonly available at safari facilities. This evidence suggested premeditation rather than a spontaneous concealment effort. The case attracted renewed international media attention when news of the discovery became public on August 10th. American television networks sent crews to Kenya to cover the investigation, while local media emphasized the cooperation between Kenyan and American authorities in pursuing justice for Sarah Mitchell. Dr. Martinez, Jake's counselor in Denver, reported that the boy was experiencing mixed emotions about the discovery. While the confirmation of his mother's death was devastating, Jake expressed relief that he finally had answers and could begin planning a proper memorial service. He also expressed determination to see justice served for whoever was responsible for his mother's death. The investigation entered a new phase focused on identifying suspects and establishing a timeline for events following Sarah's initial disappearance. Detective Mwangi assembled a larger investigative team and began coordinating with international law enforcement agencies to track down individuals who might have information relevant to the case. DNA testing conducted at the government chemist laboratory in Nairobi confirmed on August 15, 2024, that the skeletal remains belonged to Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell. The confirmation was based on comparative analysis with DNA samples provided by Jake Mitchell and verified through the FBI's International Cooperation Program. Dr. Mercy Mugo's forensic examination revealed that Sarah had sustained a fatal head injury caused by blunt force trauma, indicating that her death was the result of deliberate violence. The damaged camera recovered from the burial site proved to be crucial evidence when data recovery specialists at the Kenya Criminal Investigation Department successfully extracted 47 images from the corrupted memory card. The photographs, time-stamped between 11:30 p.m. and 12:15 a.m. on August 15, 2023, showed Sarah apparently documenting suspicious nighttime activity near the Mara bush camp. The recovered images depicted men loading large packages into vehicles under cover of darkness. While the lighting conditions made individual identification difficult, the photographs clearly showed systematic transfer of materials that appeared inconsistent with normal safari operations. Vehicle license plates were partially visible in 3 images, providing investigators with concrete leads to pursue. Detective Grace Mwangi's expanded investigation revealed that Francis Kiprotich, the former Adventure Kenya Safaris mechanic, had been involved in an illegal wildlife trafficking network operating throughout the Masai Mara region. Bank records obtained through court order showed that Kiprotich had received several large cash deposits in the months prior to Sarah's disappearance, despite earning a modest salary as a vehicle maintenance worker. The investigation uncovered evidence that the trafficking network specialized in elephant ivory and rhino horn, utilizing safari camps and tourist facilities as cover for their transportation operations. The remote location of many camps provided ideal conditions for clandestine activities, while the legitimate movement of safari vehicles helped conceal illegal cargo shipments to Nairobi and international markets. Surveillance of Kiprotich's known associates led investigators to Peter Kimani, a camp cook who had worked at multiple safari facilities throughout the region. Kimani was arrested on August 20th at his residence in Narok, where police discovered ivory pieces worth an estimated $200,000 hidden in his property. Under interrogation, Kimani provided information that led to additional arrests and revealed the full scope of the criminal operation. According to Kimani's confession, recorded on August 22nd in the presence of his attorney, Sarah Mitchell had accidentally witnessed a ivory loading operation during the early morning hours of August 15th. Kimani stated that Sarah had left her tent, apparently to use restroom facilities, and had encountered the trafficking activity in progress. When she attempted to photograph the operation, the perpetrators realized they had been discovered by a witness. Kimani's testimony revealed that Francis Kiprotich had made the decision to silence Sarah to protect the trafficking network. Kiprotich had struck Sarah with a tire iron, causing the fatal head injury identified by forensic examination. The group had then transported her body to the remote burial location, using a maintenance vehicle that would not attract attention if seen in the park. The investigation revealed that the trafficking network had been operating for approximately 3 years, utilizing connections with corrupt park officials and safari company employees. The organization had generated millions of dollars in illegal revenue by exploiting Kenya's tourism infrastructure to transport contraband wildlife products to international buyers, primarily in Asian markets. Detective Mwangi's team arrested 6 additional suspects between August 25th and September 2nd, including 2 park rangers who had provided security information to the trafficking network. The arrests were coordinated with the Kenya Wildlife Services Intelligence Unit, which had been conducting a parallel investigation into ivory smuggling activities in the region. Samuel Kipchoge, the safari guide who had assisted throughout the investigation, was cleared of any involvement in the criminal network. His persistent efforts to find Sarah Mitchell and his cooperation with authorities were recognized as instrumental in ultimately solving the case. Kipchoge expressed relief that the truth had been revealed and that Sarah's family could finally have closure. Jake Mitchell, now 14 years old, traveled to Kenya in September 2024 with his aunt Linda to attend the trial proceedings and to participate in a memorial service for his mother. the American consulate arranged for comprehensive security and psychological support during Jake's visit, recognizing the emotional significance of his return to the location where Sarah had disappeared. The trial of Francis Kiprotich and his associates began on September 15, 2024, in Nairobi's High Court. Prosecutor Jane Muthoni presented evidence including the recovered photographs, forensic analysis of the burial site, and testimony from cooperating witnesses. The case attracted significant media attention both locally and internationally, highlighting issues of wildlife trafficking and tourist safety in East Africa. During the trial, evidence revealed that the trafficking network had been responsible for the illegal removal of ivory from over 200 elephants during their 3-year operation. The environmental impact extended beyond individual animal deaths to disruption of entire elephant family groups and migration patterns throughout the Masai Mara ecosystem. Dr. James Kinyua testified as an expert witness regarding the behavioral patterns of animals at the burial site. His analysis confirmed that scavenging activity had been consistent with the timeline established by other evidence, and that the location had been chosen specifically to accelerate decomposition and evidence destruction through natural processes. The Kenya Wildlife Service announced comprehensive reforms to their security protocols, following revelations about the trafficking network. New measures included enhanced background screening for all park employees, improved surveillance systems at remote facilities, and strengthened coordination with international law enforcement agencies to combat wildlife trafficking. Adventure Kenya Safaris cooperated fully with the investigation and implemented additional safety measures for their operations. The company established a $50,000 scholarship fund in Sarah Mitchell's name to support wildlife conservation education programs in local schools throughout the Masai Mara region. On October 3, 2024, Francis Kiprotich was convicted of charges including voluntary manslaughter, wildlife trafficking, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison, while his associates received sentences ranging from 8 to 15 years, depending on their level of involvement in the criminal enterprise. The conviction brought a measure of justice for Sarah Mitchell's family, though Jake Mitchell stated publicly that no sentence could truly compensate for the loss of his mother. He expressed gratitude to all the investigators, rangers, and community members who had worked tirelessly to uncover the truth about Sarah's disappearance and death. Dr. Rebecca Martinez, Jake's counselor in Denver, reported that the resolution of his mother's case had provided significant psychological benefits for the teenager. While Jake continued to grieve his loss, he no longer struggled with the uncertainty and unanswered questions that had complicated his healing process during the previous year. The case prompted legislative action in the Kenyan parliament, with lawmakers introducing stronger penalties for wildlife trafficking and enhanced protections for tourists visiting national parks. The Sarah Mitchell Tourist Protection Act was signed into law in November 2024, establishing new safety standards and emergency response protocols for safari operations. Linda Mitchell established the Sarah Mitchell Wildlife Protection Foundation, which works to combat illegal wildlife trafficking while supporting conservation efforts in East Africa. The foundation has raised over $500,000 to support anti-poaching operations and community education programs in regions affected by wildlife trafficking. Jake Mitchell announced his intention to study wildlife conservation and law enforcement when he reaches college age, inspired by his mother's inadvertent role in exposing criminal activity that threatened endangered species. He has maintained correspondence with Samuel Kipchoge and plans to return to Kenya to support conservation efforts when he completes his education. The investigation's success was recognized internationally, with Detective Grace Mwangi receiving commendations from both Kenyan and American law enforcement agencies. Her methodical approach and international cooperation were cited as examples of effective criminal investigation in complex cross-border cases involving wildlife trafficking. The Masai Mara region has seen increased security measures and enhanced tourist safety protocols following the resolution of Sarah's case. Tourist arrivals have recovered to pre-incident levels, with many visitors expressing confidence in the improved safety measures and the dedication of Kenyan authorities to protecting foreign visitors. Samuel Kipchoge continues to work as a safari guide, while also serving as a volunteer coordinator for anti-poaching efforts in the Masai Mara. He frequently speaks to tourist groups about wildlife conservation and the importance of reporting suspicious activities that might threaten both animals and human visitors to the region. The burial site where Sarah's remains were discovered has been marked with a small memorial stone, placed there by local Maasai community members who wish to honor her memory and her inadvertent contribution to protecting wildlife in their traditional lands. The site is visited periodically by conservation workers and researchers, studying the impact of trafficking on local ecosystems. Jake Mitchell's remarkable resilience throughout the investigation and trial proceedings has been documented by child psychologists studying trauma recovery in adolescence. His case demonstrates the importance of family support, professional counseling, and community involvement in helping young people overcome traumatic experiences and find meaning in difficult circumstances. The successful prosecution of Sarah Mitchell's case has led to enhanced cooperation between East African nations in combating wildlife trafficking networks that operate across international borders. Intelligence sharing agreements and joint enforcement operations have resulted in numerous additional arrests and the disruption of several major trafficking organizations throughout the region. Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell's legacy extends far beyond the tragic circumstances of her death. Her inadvertent documentation of criminal activity led to the protection of countless animals and the improvement of safety measures for future tourists visiting Kenya's magnificent wildlife reserves. Through her son's continued advocacy and the foundation established in her name, Sarah's impact on wildlife conservation continues to grow, ensuring that her final act of courage serves a lasting purpose in protecting the animals and landscapes she loved. The case officially closed on December 15, 2024, with all appeals exhausted and sentences finalized. Detective Mwangi's final report noted that while justice had been served, the investigation highlighted ongoing challenges in protecting both wildlife and tourists in regions where criminal organizations exploit legitimate tourism operations for illegal activities.